Hello, I'm Matilda and this is Banjo. We're on our way to the party of the century.
It's kind of like a birthday party for a whole country. You see, up until now, all of the different colonies in Australia have been operating separately, doing their own thing.
But now, everyone has agreed to come together, and it's huge. One set of rules, one country, one people, all united under something called the Constitution.
Wait. I'm not sure that they're going to quite get why we're so excited about some seemingly boring document. You better explain a bit more. You probably already know that Aboriginal Australians had been here for more than 60,000 years, and that in 1788, Captain Arthur Phillip and the First Fleet arrived from England with boatloads of convicts. They brought with them the English way of doing things to keep it all running smoothly. The English leaders, the English rules, the English values.
Colonies sprang up all over the land, in New South Wales, in Tasmania, in Western Australia, in South Australia, in Queensland and in Victoria. They all started doing their own thing, building houses and shops and even roads and train tracks.
Fast forward about 100 years and everyone started to get worried that people from other countries might come and try to settle in Australia too. There were also a bunch of other problems, like the fact that the rail lines didn't connect and that made it really hard to travel from, say, Sydney to Melbourne easily. They also didn't want to have to go all the way to England just to appeal their own court cases.
At this point, the people in Australia thought it might be a good idea to try and come together as one united country. But how on earth do you make everyone happy? I can't even get my family to agree on what to eat for dinner, let alone bring a whole country together.
That's when a group of very smart people did some homework. They took all the best ingredients from what other people had done overseas and mixed them all together, kind of like baking a cake. For example, the ancient Greeks came up with the concept of democracy.
That's when everyone gets their say by voting.
And they thought that was a good idea, so they put that into the document. Also, an ancient king in Mesopotamia came up with the idea of writing down the law.
A set of rules that everyone has to follow, and if they don't, they get busted.
Just like when King Charles I didn't play ball, so they put him on trial, found him guilty and chopped off his head. Everyone is equal under the rule of law, even the king. The Vikings introduced the idea of a parliament, where the farmers and their families could get heard by the people with the power. And the ancient Romans had the idea of a senate, which meant that the emperor couldn't just do whatever he wanted.
This is called the separation of powers, and the Australians who wrote the Constitution thought it was a great idea. They also added courts and judges to keep the politicians in check.
Another crucial ingredient was the idea of federalism, where all the different colonies could peacefully unite. They thought that would be good to do because in 1787, the Americans had been through a revolution where they had to come together and fight with England to become independent.
The next ingredient they baked into the Constitution was rights. Back in the olden days, before there was a Magna Carta,
which was England's first ever book of rules.
Before this, Bad King John used to be able to just take someone's farm off them whenever he wanted to. The people who wrote the rules for Australia thought taking someone's land without paying for it was a terrible thing to do.
There were other rights baked in too, like the right to believe in your own religion. This means that you can believe in Muhammad, or Jesus, or Buddha, or Krishna. As an Australian, it is your right to choose, and if you don't want to believe in any religion, you don't have to.
The icing on the cake was the idea of Australian nationhood. That's our ever-evolving identity and independence as citizens of one country. And we have important symbols that pull us together. You know, like the flag and emblems and national capital.
That's Canberra.
And the national anthem. It took them about 10 years to come up with all the things to put into the Constitution cake. Ultimately, 6 key ingredients made up the recipe: the rule of law, democracy, separation of powers, federalism, nationhood, and rights. They baked them all in until at last they had made the Australian Constitution, a rulebook which the people in government have to obey and which protects the people of Australia.
People in all the different colonies got to vote through something called a referendum on whether or not they wanted to be governed by the Australian Constitution. And they said yes, so it's pretty exciting. Now, we're one people with one destiny and one set of rules that everyone has to follow, no matter how powerful or ordinary you are.
We know we haven't got it perfect right from the start. For example, Indigenous people are excluded at this time, but when we want to change that, we'll all get to vote again.
Thanks to the Constitution, we've got checks and balances and a stable system of government. It was written for Australians, by Australians, and it can only be changed by Australians. It represents the heart of our nation's values and the concept of a fair go.
So now you know why we're so excited. Today is the 1st of January 1901, and we've been invited to a party at Centennial Park to celebrate the first day of our new nation.
It's amazing to think that this one document, this one thing that unites us all, is going to bring us together for generations to come. Hopefully, in 100 years from now, people will still understand why the Constitution is something to celebrate.